And he came here, and Don liked him, and he said, well, we'll make you a 4/5 of a rabbi, because you finished 4/5 of rabbinic school. And he came here, and Brian is an amazing guy. He beats to his own drummer and doesn't want anybody else in the orchestra necessarily to follow him, and he's sure not going to follow them. So he does it in a way that's his. It's uniquely his, and Brian's guided by what he believes and by the concept of love. He is a loving, kind person who is sensitive to the people around him. And as he said now for many years, I don't know how long he's been doing it, he doesn't necessarily do religion inside the box. He does it outside the box. But the reality is, Brian's outside the box is what the box is all about. It's about what religion should be about. It's about what Judaism should be about. And he does it in a way that's all his own. I don't need to tell you about getting up at high holidays and going through a top 10 list while Dave Letterman was still working at 1 o'clock in the morning. Brian, when he finished his term here, said to me, because I was in rabbinic school while he was, here are my files. Take whatever you like, use whatever you like, enjoy whatever you like, change it, use it, and good luck. It's now a lot of years later, and I can only say that Brian has continued to be not only my teacher and my colleague, but my friend. And so it's a pleasure for me to present to you the Rabbi Gore's first assistant rabbi, Temple Judea's first 4/5 of a rabbi intern, because we had another one not too many years later, Dan Moskowitz. He was also in his 4/5 done when he came to work. And it's a pleasure to welcome my friend, my colleague, and my teacher, Rabbi Brian Zachary Mayer.
I'm just going to take a moment to take this in because this has been like a dream of mine, and it would really suck if I didn't take it in. Thank you all for coming. A lot of you I know, I'm so excited to read to you from this. I wrote a book. Rabbi Brian's highly unorthodox gospel. It begins like this. Word came to Rabbi Brian in Portland, Oregon, saying, proclaim unto the people, the heart of religion is to practice love and kindness. And while you're at it, ask them to stop being jerks and maybe suggest they calm down a bit and accept their finitude. But disembodied voice, responded the oversized crocheted yarmulke wearing slim styled bearded 5'11" man. I don't rabbi like that anymore. I dropped out of organized religion. I teach math in high school. Perfect, says the voice. Take all you've learned and write an honest, narrative-driven, big idea book. Preach compassion, kindness, and love for anyone curious of what a modern-day rabbi would write in the gospel. Chapter 2. Hi, I'm Rabbi Brian, the author of this gospel. Reality check. I neither heed nor hear disembodied voices. Well, there is an exception to voices coming from speakers and headphones, but that's all right. I used the phrase word came to Rabbi Brian as a literary device to establish my relationship to the biblical genre. I wanted early on to let you know my relationship with the biblical genre. That's my mistake. I misread it. It's my book. Anyway, I worked as a regular rabbi until I could no longer maintain that the benefits of tribal affiliation should be prioritized over compassion, kindness, and love. If you're a Christian, a Jew, a humanist, an atheist, a lawyer, a Canadian, or almost any other identifier. That was supposed to be funny. Or if you have confusion about the G-O-D word, you're totally welcome here. I'm delighted you're here reading, or for this case, hearing the words in this book. I'm going to read a few chapters and sections from this book. I'm totally excited. This is from a section called, oh, there it is. Thou shalt be thy own authority. Perhaps, and I say perhaps only to soften the message, an external deity isn't the true authority of your spiritual religious life. And again, perhaps, and saying just perhaps to soften the idea, no person outside yourself is the best authority on your spiritual life. Perhaps it's you. Forget perhaps, of course it's you. You are the true authority of your spiritual religious life. If someone asks you to read this book, perhaps a clergy person, a parent, a friend, a spouse, and you don't want to be reading it, please tell them. Rabbi Brian wrote right here that it's all right for me not to read this book. Seriously, if this book is not working for you, put it down. The freedom for you to make your own decisions is super, super important. Of course, if you want to continue to read this, please do. I labored for 4 years to write this book and for you to read it. The point again is, you are the true authority on your spiritual religious life. Amen. Los Angeles, 1995. Third year of rabbinical school. There's a note in my school mailbox which I check obsessively. Later, when cell phones and social media and email come around, I'll check those obsessively too. Brian, the note says, Dean Bicel would like to see you immediately after class today. I recognize the handwriting. It's Marcy, his adorable receptionist. I guess when you're summoned, you summon, I say Seinfeld-like when I arrive. Marcy chuckles. The inner door opens. The tall dean in a blue blazer says, "Come in, Brian, and thanks for coming." Of course I came. I was summoned, I say. I sit. Brian, he starts, signaling exasperation. The meeting concerns an introduction to Judaism class I'm teaching at one of Los Angeles' 2 gay synagogues. It turns out that the dean heard that I taught my class that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob probably weren't father, son, and grandson as presented in the Bible. As I explained to the class, these are just stories, possibly from different tribes, explaining how they came to be one larger, more inclusive group. Brian, he says, you have to be careful with whom you share the truth. I realize I'm living in a small Jewish fishbowl where someone in class complains to the rabbi that the student teacher questioned the reality of the stories in the Bible, and this is a big enough deal for the rabbi to call the dean to castigate me. We chat a little until it's time for me to leave. I thank you for taking this in good spirits, Brian. I certainly hope that you would. Well, thanks for admonishing me, I say, smiling. Summons me anytime. He laughs politely. Later in life, I'll reevaluate my instinctual desire to fawn to please authority. Hey, I say on my way out casually, might you recommend a therapist? I have some things I need to work out. I think but don't say, like how I'm supposed to not teach what I believe to be true. This religion stuff is triggering. Little man, a woman's voice coos from behind me. New York City, 1982. Little man, why don't you accept Jesus into your heart? It's the modestly dressed African-American woman with the radiant smile who passed me in front of Yum Yum Donut Shop on 72nd and Broadway. She must have followed me, and I'm 12 years old, and I've stopped to play a video game at the back of the very narrow store. It's Kangaroo. Anyone remember Kangaroo as a video game? Nobody? Just me? You do? Okay, thank you. I'm so glad that you're here, Michael. Okay. I have 3 chances as a mama marsupial with boxing gloves to avoid apple-throwing monkeys. She has accosted me before asking me to say, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. And I've ignored her before, and I do so again. My eyes focused ahead. I'm trying to save my blindfolded Joey being held captive at the top of the screen. Right. Today, her seduction reaches a new level. I can't ignore it. I know you can hear me, beautiful boy with those beautiful eyelashes. Beautiful child, I know you hear me. I see you smiling right now. I blush. I want to say it to please her. Just say it for me once, sugar. Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. Well, intoxicated, I parrot the 7 words back. And she claps her hands and exclaims, "Oh, thank you, beautiful. Oh, thank you. Praise Jesus." My game ends shortly thereafter, and I turn to look at her, a fulgent smile. I want to stay for eternity, feeling the warmth of her looking at me, seeing me, pleased by me. But she is gone. I never see her again. My elation is replaced with shame. I feel dirty for having said those 7 words. I'm a Jewish kid after all, and I'm not supposed to have said that. Am I now Christian? Will there be a note in my permanent record? I don't know. I don't think so, but I'm not sure. I never mentioned this incident to anyone. That's my Uncle Arrow. Book of Genesis, New York City, 1975. Every night when the phone rings after dinner, we say, 7 o'clock, Grandma calling. I'm 5 years old. My grandma calls every night at 7 p.m. I stand in the living room holding the black metal telephone handset with my 2 small hands. She and I end our phone calls like this always. I tell her, "Grandma, I have a secret." And she says, "I have a secret too." "I know what it is," I say, my adorable New York accent in a sing-song cadence into the receiver. Her warm, husky voice intones, "I love you, Tatala. It's our little secret." I smile. "Bye," I say as I place the headset back on the base. Her secret with me is the same one she has with my sister and my cousins. Each of us is her favorite. That's an amazing thing I have learned about love. It can make 5 individuals, each a grandmother's favorite. New York City, 1978. My sister Sari and I are 11 and 8. Fiddler on the Roof songbook with the yellow Chagall painting-inspired cover sits atop the living room piano. We're singing our favorite duet. She plays and I sing, asking her if she loves me. She responds shrilly, just like Goldie in the play, and I repeat, "Do you love me?" As scripted, she repeats the question, sings about me being busy, mocks the question, accuses me, Tevye, of having indigestion. She calls me a fool. I respond flatly, knowingly, "I know." Were there an audience, it would get a laugh. But I continue, back to the question, "Do you love me?" She responds again without answering until finally she relents. "I love you." New York City, 1985. Ava, the family therapist, says to my father, "Donald, your daughter expressed that she wants to hear you say that you love her. Can you tell her?" Sari, on break from college, is sitting in the repurposed classroom chair in the Upper West Side apartment bedroom turned therapy office. She looks forward, her eyes wide and unblinking. Dad chokes back his tears as he tries to speak. His left hand rotates in small circles as though to say, "I'm working on figuring out the words to say." His right eye navigates over his glasses, position his thumb over his right eye, pinky over left. He manages to say, "You can tell her that she knows her father loves her." Ava says, "Can you tell her directly?" He cannot. New York City, 1997. "Can you say Louvre?" I asked my buddy Eric, whom I've known since we were 2. We're both in our mid-20s and we're out at a bar. He's in a bit of a panic as his girlfriend, soon-to-be fiancée and later bride, has told him that she loves him. And he knows he can't say the same words, the relationship will end. So we practice. Louvre, I say, like love, but with an oo instead of an like the Louvre, I coach. "Can you say that, as in I love you, but I louvre you?" We practice until he can get those sounds out. He and Pam are still married. I got to officiate. Portland, Oregon, 2016. It's my 7th year teaching math. I've gotten pretty good at it. I love my students. Fiona was one of my students. I love my students, and because they can feel the reckless amounts of love I have and compassion, I'm their favorite teacher. For most of them, at least. This is the last week of instruction at De La Salle North Catholic High School. I gave the students their final early so they could retake it if they wanted to, so they wouldn't have all their finals in 1 week. Yes, it's a Catholic school. Yes, I'm an ordained rabbi. And yes, I'm teaching algebra. I needed to do something after dropping out of organized religion, and I'll explain that later. But schools are always desperate for math teachers. I tell each of my 5 class periods, today and tomorrow, I'm going to tell each of you something about you. I'm going to go one by one and tell each of you something I admire about you, or what you mean to me. But, I continue, 2 caveats. 1, you can drop out. Just put your hand up and I'll skip you, that's fine. And 2, what you're about to hear are words said by one 40-something-year-old white man. That doesn't mean that it's right. What I might be saying might not be true or accurate. You take what you like and leave the rest. And one by one, over the course of 2 days, I go through the room. Having spent some 130 instructional hours with each of the students, I know something about them. Amanda, I say. When I see you, I look at someone who's fierce on the outside and a little scared on the inside. I know somebody who's brave enough to let us in, and I know that you are someone who has great hair, and someone who seems to know exactly how to make her friends laugh. Tissues get passed. DJ, I say. I see someone who's determined to save the one and only life he can, his own. I see a dedicated son, a hard worker, a poet, an artist, someone who knows how to put in the hours to get towards the ever-elusive promise of perfection. I see someone who insists on living a bully-free life. I'm delighted to have met you. No one ever drops out. My students were starved to feel seen, and that's not just because of their low socioeconomic status. Most teenagers are starving to feel seen. Most people are. How about you? Are you hungry to be seen? It's a human longing to want to be seen, even if we pretend otherwise. Love begins when we see each other. Portland, Oregon, 2011. Last week, my right eye swollen shut from a surgery to remove a carcinoma from my upper right cheek. I biked to the local Trader Joe's to do some shopping. Frances at the checkout asked me how I am. Honestly, my friend, I'm feeling the feels. I pause, look up to see if she is in fact listening, and continue. I'm having a hard time, and I'm feeling a bit vain from my surgery if you want an honest answer. I love honest answers. I thank you for that, she says as she scans my fruit, cheese, veggies, along with a decent amount of unhealthy snacks. She asked me which item in the cart is my favorite. The chocolate-covered marshmallows, I tell her. And then I add, though the label on the side isn't patently wrong. I explain that the serving size is not two light and delicious marshmallows drenched in smooth dark chocolate, but in fact 1 box. I'd like to buy that single box serving for you, she says. I weep a bit into my mask. Being seen is powerful. Here, now. If in the 1990s you were sitting next to me on a flight, you might see me do a variety of one-handed cuts of cards and card flourishes, a desperate cry for attention at 40,000 feet. Were you to comment on my dexterity with a pack of playing cards, which was my hope, I would gladly show you a solid hour of magic tricks. I've since learned that most people have the appetite for about 3 tricks. And sometimes after the age of 40, I learned that I had something more valuable to share. It was what I was hiding behind the cards. Me. In graduate school for education, where's Bobby? Bobby was in my graduate school classes after that. Thank you for coming. In graduate school for education, we learned the classroom management technique of handing out stickers as an extrinsic motivator. A sticker economy is mainly targeted at classrooms with kids aged 10 and younger. But I'm not afraid of an experiment failing, and I figure my high school students, better wired for abstraction, will enjoy getting smiley face stickers in the color of their choice. From me, their rabbi turned math teacher. So I carry smiley face stickers around and I give one away when I see something I like. Luis, you get a sticker for interrupting and asking me a question. Nicole, you get a sticker for helping Matt. And Matt, you get a sticker for asking Nicole for help. Taryn, you were on time and in your seat for the first time before the bell this week. It's sticker time. What color do you want? Some put stickers on the cover of their binders to brag amongst themselves. They love it. High school kids want love and to be seen just as much as 10-year-olds do. They're just not as good at asking for it. What about you? You're an adult. Adults are the same as high school students, and worse. We all want to feel seen for who we are. We just, for the most part, stink at asking for hugs, or love, or stickers. I'd like to suggest we re-examine this default position. Why can't we ask for love? Why can't you be the most effusive, the most giving, the most loving person of all the people you know? What do you have to lose? I suggest we try to change this world by being more vulnerable. Let us peel back the shell to present as human, allowing others to see us as more than fine. I see you, seeking love, desiring to be more loving more of the time. This book is my box of chocolate marshmallows for you. I'm going to take some water now. It's only the third time I've done a book reading, so
You're doing great.
Brian, I'll give you a sticker.
thank you. I know, this is Hollywood, that was Beaver. That was 3, 4, 5. I collated what I wanted to read to you today. Ooh. I like Judaism. I like a religion / race / tribe that allows for radical questioning and doesn't require lip service to creeds. I like that Judaism historically and to this day encourages dissenting voices to be heard. I like my time when I'm working as a synagogue rabbi, helping 12 and 13-year-olds understand that they are the authorities over their own religious lives, which they speak about in their own words as part of their bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, coming of age ceremonies. But by late June 2000, 6 months after my 30th birthday, the proverbial hole in my Kiddush cup is letting out more than is going in. My soul is atrophying. I tell 3 of my 4 bosses that I need to leave. First, I tell the senior rabbi, Don Gore. He's a good man who flew 6,000 miles in 48 hours to conduct my wedding in New York. He says it's a loss for the congregation, and he wants me to pursue my own happiness. Second, I tell the board of directors. And third, I tell the congregation in the newsletter. I can't preach follow your own soul if I don't follow mine. And I, along with the board, invite them to a pizza and beer Shabbat service. Hundreds attend. My 4th boss, God, as far as I can understand the word, I don't tell. I figure, as far as I can understand, God knows. And I have no idea what I'll do next. Los Angeles, 2000. I'm standing on a stage on a portable riser at Temple Judea's social hall. It's been 18 months since my last day working here as a rabbi. It's a Tuesday evening, and if you think it's a mistake that tonight's a Tuesday evening, it's not. It's a Tuesday evening, and more than 100 people have ponied up $15 apiece to see the premiere of my one-man show, Religion Outside the Box. Rabbi Gore lovingly introduces me, and I stand on a stage with an open recounting of my childhood, with a line I use and still use. It all begins at Mount Sinai. I was born there, Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan, New York, 1970. I act out being in the family car in the back seat with my sister eating Burger King bacon double cheeseburgers on matzah. We had a coupon and it was going to expire. I relate the story of God telling Jonah to go clean up the sin city of the Assyrian Empire, Nineveh, and how Jonah, not buying it, runs away. I pause. I am Jonah, I say. I am Jonah because I was called. I am Jonah because I realized that when I realized I had gotten a call, I retreated. I monologued. I am Jonah because when God called me, I insisted God had contacted the wrong person. I am Jonah because after I got a calling, I got scared and I didn't want to tell anyone. I was scared that my life would be irreparably changed if I told people God, and I don't even know what that word means, spoke to me. God, from what I can tell, using this word, from what this rationalist, self-proclaimed heretic can understand, that God wants me to tell people that it does not matter what path they are on, as so long as they are on a path, awake to the fact that they are alive. That God does not discriminate based on religious upbringing or current affiliation. That God wants me to tell you it doesn't matter if you know the Hebrew prayers, which prayers are supposed to be when. That God wants us to be more loving. The audience is with me all the way to the end. The Jewish Journal reviews the show. Religion outside the box is, in a word, revolutionary. In it, Mayer weaves a bewitching combination of Borscht Belt-style humor and Eastern philosophy, gently mocking both himself and the audience, while challenging the assumption that faith is passive, absorbed through rote prayer and what passes for tradition. Think of a Jewish Ram Dass channeled with Ray Romano. The show takes a few interesting twists, particularly in skits like God in the 50-minute hour, in which Mayer acts out the part of the Lord Almighty in session with the psychotherapy, and more interactive sessions. Audience participation is fully a must to absorb Mayer's philosophy. The audience of about 150 people, not shabby for a Tuesday night in the Valley, took the 90-minute show to heart and appeared not only to have a great time, but to have learned something. I am elated. I love that what I'm preaching is moving people. About a year later, I contact the Journal to tell them about a new talk I have. We won't cover you again, they say. Your stuff is not Jewish enough. Ouch. This is from a section called The Book of Malarkey. I don't know if you've ever written a book, but the day I discovered the word malarkey, I thought that was a really good day. I was like, I've done all the writing I need to today. Malarkey's a great word. Not an original sin. My people, Jews, we don't do this original sin thing. We don't grow up with this very dangerous, damaging doctrine. We know about sin and guilt. We're Jews. We have an annual holiday, Yom Kippur, to talk about the wrongs we have done, and a litany of rituals to help us return to the path of righteousness. We make mistakes, and we have guilt when we have done something wrong. We can create guilt masterpieces. But original sin, a human construct by which many lives are unduly influenced, is a far darker thought than an error for feeling guilty. The premise of original sin, that you are and have been wrong since conception, is fucked up. It's insidious. The idea that original sin leads to shame, and there is something wrong with your very character, and that is a horrible shame. Were you brought up to believe that your thoughts and you could be impure? Shame on them for telling you that. I can't even imagine. There was no fall, no original sin, no ancestral sin. Actions purported to have been taken by Adam and Eve do not implicate your life. Let's look at the text, look at the Bible. The idea of original sin was birthed into the world by Augustine of Hippo, not God. The sinner for all time concept is a 4th century man's gloss on Genesis 3. His thought became very popular. After all, it explains why seemingly bad things happen. But that doesn't make it right. The Bible itself never uses the word original sin, except for 2 times in extra-canonical books to make mention that original sin is not inherited. Moreover, the word translated into English as sin isn't even used in the Bible till after the expulsion from the Garden of Eden. Sin debuts with Cain being told regarding his jealousy of Abel that sin crouches at your door, desire to have you, but you must master it. Childbirth will be painful, yes. Hard work, yes. Original sin, no. If you want to believe that humanity is broken and deserving of misery, believe it because you choose to believe it, not because someone told you it's in the Bible. Biblical sin in my toddler. Adam and or Eve did not disobey God. This idea might be hard to swallow if you grew up believing otherwise, especially if you were brought up Catholic or other types of fundamentalists. Nonetheless, and no matter what you previously were told to think, neither Adam nor Eve disobeyed God. Stick with me. Adam and Eve could not have disobeyed God because they didn't know better. Let me explain. I didn't punish my almost toddler when he crawled up and tugged on a tablecloth in an attempt to pull himself to stand. My calls of don't stop didn't make sense to him. Why? Because most other times he had pulled himself up on a chair or a table, I had been proud. Was he disobedient, not listening to me? No. He just didn't understand. I rushed to save him from the stupid crystal bowl that could have hit him on the head or smashed on the ground. I got there in time. But we didn't punish him. He wasn't wrong in his actions. He was just trying to pull himself up. Adam and Eve didn't know not to listen to the serpent. How could they know the serpent was lying? They didn't yet know the difference between good and evil. They didn't have that knowledge. They disobedient, nothing shameful for all time, innocence, a lack of understanding. Except for pinning the blame on women for birthing evil in the world, that shit's not innocent. That's just plain wrong. Augie, may I call you that, Augustine of Hippo? Let me ask you a question. Is Jesus' craftsmanship shoddy? Why do I ask? Well, if the self-sacrifice of Jesus was penance for our apparent sinfulness, if Jesus paid the ultimate price to free us from sin, why are people still full of original sin at birth? And let me answer, they're not. I heard a missionary while being interviewed on NPR say that the key to selling Jesus' salvation is to first arouse a deep need for it. That is, to tell the cure of Jesus dying for your sin, you have to first go about convincing people that they are sinners. Oh, Jesus. I can't imagine the exhaustion and terror of having to free oneself from the internalized message of I am a sinner. Religion is about becoming, transforming, changing, growing, free. Free yourself from a voice that tells you you are inherently bad or wrong, or find a therapist or a team of therapists to help. Even if you at one point were broken, it doesn't mean you still are, or always will be. A quotation that helps me know I'm bigger than the pain inflicted on me from Rabbi Nachman of Wrocław. A person should not fall into despair on account of the many blemishes or harm their actions have caused. If you believe it's possible to break, believe too it is possible to repair. Occasionally I hear, I'm so sorry, Rabbi Brian, you're kind and seemingly good, but you're still a sinner unless you accept Jesus Christ into your heart as Lord and Savior. What I think, if you're going to have your theology tied to a correct set of answers of binary questions, you might want to take a deeper look into what's driving your desire for simplicity. If you really believe this infinite would pick on teens and be petty, but what I say is you have the choice to believe that is true, and you can also believe otherwise. As simple as it sounds, you can choose not to believe that you were born into sin. And what is sin anyhow? My favorite definition comes from the Jesuit James Keenan. Sin is a failure to bother to love. I'm going to say that again. Sin is a failure to bother to love. Ira, you're in the next section. No. He does what he wants. It's not my blood uncle, by the way. That's going to be important because the story's going to get a little weird if you think that we're related. Let me read. Kosher kindness. New York City, 2022. We're sitting at the dining room table of my mom's New York City apartment. Having grown up in more formal family dinners and holiday dinners in this room, decorated with Polish Cirque posters and built-in wooden cabinets. We're in town to celebrate my youngest niece's bat mitzvah. Emmett is surfing the web on a laptop. I'm working on backing up and restoring Jane's iPhone, which is burning through mobile data. Ira, mom's beau, sits next to Emmett, fidgeting with the camera. Jane is sitting to my right, helping me. Mom doesn't like sitting. She hovers. I recount the following story of an incident that happened at the bat mitzvah party. This is me speaking to everyone. Between loud songs and loud games the kids were playing, a woman I don't know gestures to me, to my hat, and says, "So Rabbi, you wear a hat. Do you keep kosher?" I know how this is going to go. I've had this question before. I'll tell her I don't, and she'll tell me she does, and she'll leave feeling she's better than the rabbi. This has happened a lot. So, as I've done this dance before, I don't answer with a simple binary no. Instead, I give a quality answer, one that would teach her something if she was asking to learn. I answer, kosher is more about what comes out of my mouth than what goes into it. She wasn't there to learn. She doesn't register what I say, and on script she says, "Well, I keep kosher." She leaves. At the table, Ira's thick Boston accent joins in. "Kid, that's quite a good answer there, a good answer. Yes, sirree, a thinker. Kosher's more about what comes out of my mouth than what goes in. I see. Thanks, Ira. It's a quote from Jesus, actually. It's Gospel of Mark and Matthew. Most people never hear that, though. He plays along. Is that so? Is that so? Yeah, right near the Sermon on the Mount. It's the best quote about what kosher means might come from what might be considered the least kosher of sources. Mom interjects. Emmett, look that up. I don't register anything's off with Mom's request demand of her grandson, but Jane does. She lifts her hands from the table, puts her head in her hands, momentarily, shakes her head, and then with a half smile says, Jesus. She continues with the Jedi's ability not to elicit hostility. Jesus, Elaine, your son's a rabbi, a New Testament scholar. You can believe him. Still exasperation-free, she pushes her chair from the table, excuses herself with a very pleasant, oy vey. It's been a long day. Good night, all. Echoes of good night, Jane follow. An interesting question, I say to my mom, is whether Jesus said unfit or unclean. They're different after all, and we can't tell from the Greek. Kosher is also about keeping others from feeling shame. So you know, the word kosher doesn't appear in the Bible until after the exile to Babylon in 586 BCE. The early books of the Bible talk about foods being clean and unclean. The notion of fit for our group's consumption is a later concept. Kosher isn't about things being clean, it's about them being suitable for eating as members of a cohort. About an hour later, I'm still at the table, still working on Jane's iPhone. Emmett, my mom, and Ira have moved on. Jane wanders back in. Did your mom apologize, she asks. Yeah, later on, she came back in. What did she say? She said, I wasn't trying to be insulting to you. I wanted Emmett to learn not to take things as fact without checking. Jane tells me that's not an apology. I tell her, sure it is. I took it as one. Two quotes from the author Robert Brault. 1. Life becomes easier when you learn to accept the apology you never got. I'm going to say that again. Life becomes easier when you learn to accept the apology you never got. And another of his quotes. Today I bent the truth to be kind, and I have no regrets, for I am far more certain of what is kind than I am of what is true. A true spiritual religious life is about keeping people from shame. What came out of my mouth, kind words, is what kosher is about. Words that are fit for saying. So the next thing that in the book that I want to teach is from a section called the Book of Love. And honestly, I teach this so much better in person than I do in writing. So I'm going to take a break from the writing and I'm going to just teach it to you. I actually learned this from this gentleman right here, Larry Keene. Professor Dr. Larry Keene, minister of the Disciples of Christ Church, Little Brown Church, and Church of the Valley. Larry taught me this. What I'm about to teach you is not his work, it's the work of Dr. Logan Fox. And this is a 4-part definition of love. I'm going to move over there. You're going to be filming my butt.
Where are you going?
I'm right here. Where are you going? Okay. Love in 4 parts. Now this is something I'm actually teaching as opposed to the quote about the quote about shame, about anything else. This one I'm teaching and you will remember when you leave here. Love has 4 parts to it. Can everyone say sour? S-A-U-R, sour. Sour. Say it again. Sour. Good. We're going to learn this. Love has 4 parts to it. The first part is S. Then comes the A. Then comes the U. Then comes R. You guys know this already. The S. The S stands for seeing. You can't love someone unless you see them. The least loving thing you can do is ignore someone. The least loving thing you can do is ignore someone. I bet most of you remember being on the wrong side of a silent treatment. Anyone remember that? It's an awful feeling to not feel seen, to be made to feel invisible. The first part of love is seeing. Good. So one of the schools I taught at, they wouldn't allow us to give homework. So I had to learn how to teach so that everything got learned in the here and now. So the first S is see. When I live in Portland, Oregon, and when I go to get coffee, the barista has really interesting hair, tattoos, rings, one ring here. Yeah, that's how I say, oh, look, you have really long nails, or whatever it is, the identifying thing on the person. I say that, why? Because the first part of loving someone is
Seeing them.
Good, that's seeing. The next letter is
A.
Excellent. Seeing, accepting. Accepting means accepting. It doesn't mean approving. It's not seeing approving, it's seeing accepting. Accepting means it is how it is, how it is, and how it is how it is. And I might not paint my nails and have them that long, but I'm going to accept that that's what you're doing. The first letter of love is
Seeing.
Then
Accepting.
and then understanding. How many of you right now are wishing that I were your math teacher back in high school? I get that a lot. Seeing,
Accepting.
understanding is empathy. Is saying, you made the choices you made, and if I were you, Ariel, it's Ariel, if I were you, Ariel, I would make the same decisions. Because I understand that you're a product of who you are, where you are. Cheryl, can I call on you? Okay, you're allowed to say no. The first letter is seeing, then,
Accepting.
and then,
Understanding.
y'all are helping Cheryl out. You all get stickers. The last letter is
R.
Responding. It's all nice, but unless you do something, unless you say, oh, look, you have pink hair, unless you say, oh, look, you have the most amazing jacket, unless you say something, it doesn't count. Love has 4 parts to it. It is
Seeing, accepting, understanding, responding.
responding. Excellent. I'm going to go back to reading, okay? From the Book of Love, that's the title of this book, the section this is in. It's called Practice Loving Your Apparent Enemy. Salem, Oregon, 2017. Emmett is 11, Annie 9. We are in Salem, Oregon's capital, for a women's march. Jane and I joke that the kids are learning local geography from attending protests. We, along with other people who are unhappy with the State of the Union, we're in front of the Capitol building, which looks like a cross between the White House and a Mormon church. There's a man standing on the left corner across the street with a PA system, preaching that we are all sinners. On the right corner, there's a man waving a Nazi flag. Inspired by the Daryl Davis documentary, Accidental Courtesy, let me see hands. How many of you have seen that? Just you, Walker? Amazing. Everyone be like my second cousin once removed Walker. There's a movie called Accidental Courtesy with a jazz musician named Daryl Davis. Inspired by the Daryl Davis documentary Accidental Courtesy, I have a compulsion to go over to talk to one of them. Before I decide which, I see someone approach the man with the flag and shove him. He falters. I silently root for him not to fall. He stays up. I have mixed feelings about it. But I know my priorities, and violence is never the answer. I cross the street to address the fire and brimstone megaphone evangelist, and I giggled to myself for a moment. I've just had a choice between 2 evils, and I'm trying to choose the lesser of the 2. I don't know what I'm going to say as I approach him, and then I hear his amplified, slightly tinny voice say, "There's not even a preacher here besides me." Ooh, that's my entrance. "Brother," I say, "you're not the only preacher here." He moves the microphone from his mouth so he and I can talk somewhat privately. I say, I'm amazed that the right words seem to come out of my mouth. It must be really scary to be where you are right now. Hey, quick time out. You understand how that fits in? It wasn't S.
No.
Accepting, understanding, and right. It was love. "Brother," I say, "you're not the only preacher here." He moves the microphone from his mouth so he and I can talk somewhat privately. I say, amazed the right words come out of my mouth, "It must be scary to be where you are right now." He looks at me with hesitation in his eyes and he says, "It is scary. This is not what I like to be doing, but it's what I need to be doing." We exchange names and handshakes. "Can I help?" I ask earnestly, not certain of what I'm even offering. He says, "Would you pray with me?" I would be glad to, I say. What comes to mind is to sing the very calm, grounding prayer for peace, O say shalom, the final lines of a 13th century Aramaic prayer with its origin in the book of Job, chapter 25. It's beautiful, almost haunting, but I think better of leaving with Hebrew, and I stammer, I come from a slightly different tradition than yours. That's not a problem, we're both Christians. I'm Christian enough. It gets awkward for a moment. He sees my head covering. He hesitates and asks skeptically, do you believe Jesus Christ is the only true God? I hate binary, I say, and I continue with William Blake's retort when he was asked the same. Jesus is the only God, and so am I, and so are you. Wrong answer. Jason turns from me, flips the microphone back down. We are not gods, he intones into the megaphone. We are not gods, he says again and again. We are not gods. Brother, I say, I'd sure like to pray with you. You are not my brother. Jason, you might want to check your Bible again. I'm sure I am. He turns his back to me, and he picks up again about the wages of sin. I go back to my side of the street to my family, and about 15 minutes later, I see a man, unamplified, shouting at Jason nearly as loud. Vehemently, I can't stand idly by and witness this abuse. As Jesus, to whom Jason is devoted, said in the book of Matthew, there is no righteousness in loving those we love. Even hypocrites do that. But before I'm able to get to Jason, another red-faced screaming woman adds her voice to that man's shouting. I make my way between the two shouters and Jason and the two shouters and call to a few folks standing around looking helpless. Let's make a love circle around Jason. I put my arms out to demonstrate. 4 or 5 of us hold hands around Jason and form a barrier to keep him away from those shouting at him. It is holy. Outnumbered and outclassed, the shouters, people on my side politically, disperse. Sometime after I've returned to my family, I look up to see Jason walking off with police on either side of him. Oh no. I catch up, but just as he and the cops are parting ways, I say, Jason, I hope you're not feeling like you were thrown out of here. No, he says, and our eyes meet. I see for a moment his beautiful soul. I imagine him as a little child being abused, thinking that abuse must mean love. I figure, why else is someone going to put themselves out here to be abused, if not to reenact some childhood trauma? We walk at the same pace in silence until he says, I'm actually a shy man. He tells me he's glad we met, and I can find him on the internet if I look up on YouTube for Oregon Jesus Preacher. Later, I look him up and I see accounts of his many other protests, including some where he's been knocked unconscious by people on my side. I leave a comment on his YouTube channel. Brother Jason, it was beautiful to get to meet you in Salem. It was the highlight of my trip. He hearts my comments and writes, I looked at what you put up on the web, and I think you have some interesting things. Later, and it hurts my feelings and my heart to see, he takes down our exchange.
Say that again. I didn't hear it.
He hearts my comment. That's an internet thing. You know that. He hearts my comments and writes, I looked at what you put on the web, and I think you have some interesting things. Later, and it hurts my heart to see, he takes our exchange down. Last section I'm going to read. It's called The Birthright of Love. We have a lot of, and we can, go ahead, comment. I taught high school math to high school kids. You don't scare me.
I thought that was beautiful.
Thank you, Bob. It's my brother-in-law, Bob.
I thought what Rabbi Brian said was beautiful.
Thank you, Ira. I have my whole family here. Birthright of Love, St. George. See, the whole God thing got out of hand because God is us. Most major religions have said, love your God, love your neighbor, love yourself. And without saying it, they meant it because basically it's the same guy. St. George Carlin was right. We can't love others until we really love ourselves, and we can't love ourselves without fully loving others. They're different paths up the same mountain, infinities that are equal in size. Love yourself, love others, love God. Fred Rogers told me that he liked me just as I am, and I believed him. He sang about him liking me exactly and precisely, without doubt or question, just as I am. Why would he lie? A meme I saw. I love you. You're probably thinking you don't even know me, but if some people can hate for no reason, I can love for no reason. This is an odd idea for people to take in, that we are loved and deserve love just because we are. Beloved, we are deserving of love, not because we earn it, but because we are, because we exist, because being beloved is our birthright. And while it might have been nice if we all started out with love that was unconditional and positive regard, almost all of us learned that love is conditional. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, of the book On Death and Dying fame, taught that we learned at very young ages that we would get love if we performed as adults wanted us to. Parents ooh and ah over babies who coo. We applaud toddlers who memorize songs. Much of the love we've received, she taught, was conditional. To refer to this, she used the very loaded word prostitution. It's the second dictionary definition of prostitution: the unworthy or corrupt use of one's talent for the sake of personal or financial gain. And I'm going to use this provocative word because I think the shock is warranted to wake us up of how toxic this message was and still is to this day. Our safety was and often is based on pleasing those around and within us. We learned to think of love as something we had to earn. Ugh. Beloved, of course you owe nothing for love. You are beloved, as is. Hafiz wrote, even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me. New York City, 1985. I'm 15. The last class period of the day is over. I'm looking to hang out with someone before I go home. I like being with people. It helps me feel seen, real, loved, though I doubt I would have put it this way at the time. I do a sweep of the 6th floor library. None of my friends are there. I exit to the stairwell and count each of the 42 steps up to the 8th floor where the music and art departments are. I meander into the art room. Sometimes I like to do homework there with friends or just goof off thinking about doing homework. Can I help you? An attentive woman wearing a green smock asks. Nah, just wandering, possibly meandering, I say, over-intellectualizing. She beams, would you like to try the still life the 4th grade was just painting? Maybe it's easier for children to believe that someone loves them just as they are because they're closer to the age when babies ideally get love for just being. Adults are a bit more skeptical about messages of love. Many adults, and maybe even you, believe, if you really got to know me, you wouldn't love me. And I can tell you with statistical probability that is not true, because everyone I have ever met and gotten to know, I have loved. The green smocked lady brings me over to a tableau of shoes on the table, pulls out a chair, inviting me to sit. She tells me she's a sub for the lower schoolers and asks, would you like to try a hand at watercolor this afternoon? Spellbound, I put my backpack down and start on a pencil outline on a half sheet of watercolor paper. What if we all allowed love in? What if we stopped repeating and believing the terrible things we tell ourselves? What if we allowed ourselves to be as we might have been as children, lovable exactly as we are? Let's use our giant adult intellects and hearts of loving kindness to get more love into the world. I love it, the green smocked lady says a few minutes later. You're kidding, I say. No, the color's the abstraction. It's really quite good. I look at it, and it looks nothing like the reality I see. She's probably a happy with everything life type of person. Or she's comparing my work to that of the kids she worked with all day. Unless, well, could it be? Well, yes. When I'm asked why I stopped teaching high school students, I explain, I found a population even more desperate than teenagers for my cajoling them into leaning and knowing that they are loved. Adults, You. You might not believe me, insert your name here, that you are loved, and that's okay. You can deny it, but Mr. Rogers and I still know it's true. You are beloved, exactly as you are. I feel it is only right to tell you that I am not at level 5 near perfect at this. I'm getting better at it all the time, but no, I'm not a natural. I think this is kind of how I'm good at teaching of it, because I struggle with it too. Of course, we might harbor some doubts that you still might believe that it is possible, that out of all the people you have existed, you are an exception. You might think that you do not deserve love, but that's not true. It is simply not true. If you hear a voice telling you otherwise, do you hear a voice saying you are the exception, you, the person hearing these words, do not accept love? Well, yeah, that happens. I've seen it. A wrinkle in the system that makes it take a little longer for some people to believe it than others. Stay patient, my friend. It doesn't happen all at once for most people. Be gentle with yourself. Keep going. I got you. We got this. Like learning the French horn, it's probably just going to take a while. But beloved, let me assure you, you are deserving of love.
Amen.
Amen.
True love.
This guy is true love.
Hold that camera the whole time, and his hand didn't shake for 1/4 of a second,
Thank
and
you.
to do it the whole time. So, that's love.
Thank you, Ira. Anyone else have a compliment for Ira?
How much are the tickets? Are you selling?
I'll tell another story that didn't make it in the book, but it's a true story. Ira and I were in Nice, France, with the Goldbergs, which was his family, and the Mayers, which was my family. We all traveled together. That's how he became Uncle Ira to me. And I don't know what coincidence happened in the world, but I got stuck. I got to be with Uncle Ira for the day. And we went out to a pier, and he leaned on a pillar and was just looking out. And I said, "So what are we doing today?" And he said, "We're watching the waves, kid. We're watching the waves." And I thought, he's fucking nuts. And the story stayed with me for decades, until I realized how absolutely wise and brilliant that was. We're watching the waves, kid. We're watching the waves. Anyone else with a story about Ira?
A story about you. Yes.
Go
So,
ahead.
for my 16th birthday, Rabbi Meir was my math teacher at the time, and I chose him to be my special guest at my 16th birthday. And it was philosophy themed, really popular theme for a 16-year-old. And I decorated the whole house with my favorite philosophers: Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Seuss, and Voltaire. Our favorite quote: "If life is a shipwreck, but don't forget to sing in the lifeboats." And Brian arrived and did some magic, had us write letters from our future self to our past self, and that was so special. So thank you.
I remember, Fiona, you were so scared to ask me. You said, "I have a request," and you were stammering. And I said, "The answer is yes. What's the question?" And you said, "Would you come to my birthday party?" That was really sweet. Any questions about what I wrote or what I said? Ira and Fiona aside. Yeah, Sherry.
Tell us what you're doing now.
I live in Portland, Oregon now. I'm raising 2 children. I run a service on Saturday mornings. That is it's the service that I would want to go to. We got rid of the Torah service, we got rid of the Hebrew, we got rid of the Jews only requirement. And it's very interactive and very fun. We just finished our 3rd week talking about vulnerability. Before that we had 2 weeks about hope. It's whatever the group wants to talk about, and it's really pretty cool. And I send out a newsletter 40 out of 52 weeks a year that I know a lot of you get. If you don't get it, if you buy a book, I will sign you up for free for the newsletter. If you don't buy a book, you can also sign up for free for the newsletter. And some of you, I can't find you right now, have never.
Meditation every day.
And I do meditation that's at 2 o'clock every day, and I play the French horn to remind us that we shall overcome at 7. And there's some people who have never hit respond on an email that I've sent. I forgot who that was. They were here a second ago. There you are. You're wearing a mask now. Thank you. It was Dee? Di. I tend to a congregation of over 3,000 people on the internet. It's pretty freaking cool. The hardest part of my job was convincing people to use Zoom, and then fortunately we had this pandemic. And Sherry comes to the service last time, and we have to sometimes remember to mute somebody's microphone. They come back to the screen and they're like, why am I muted? It's like, because you were talking to your dog. Not you, yeah, that was you. Any other questions about what I wrote? Books are available for sale. Yes?
I just want to know why you use the word gospel.
That's exactly why I use the word gospel.
It's very distressing.
It is, well, also it spells out, so Rabbi Brian's highly unorthodox gospel makes H-U-G, so it's Rabbi Brian's hug. So I kind of like the G for that.
Oh.
Thank you. The gospel was also to get people to start talking and to think about it. Why is it verboten if it's using the word gospel?
Well, what does it mean exactly?
It means good news. That's what the word means. And I thought, I got some good news. We can love. It is God's truth.
Whenever I would go on vacation in the church, the elders had heard Brian speak at one of the midweek meetings. And they would say to me, take a few extra weeks on vacation and have Brian Mayer come to preach. So he always filled in when I was going, and because of that, I got extra vacation time this year.
I've had, Larry and I got to be friends, and it was hard. There's a untaught thing in Judaism that something that is Christian is taboo. It's tameh. It's going to tarnish your soul. That's not true. But it's really hard to get over that. Thank you for asking that question. You get a sticker. See the sticker? Yes, Daniel. Was that another question? I'm sorry.
I can ask one if you don't mind.
I thought you did. Go ahead.
Boundaries. You didn't talk about boundaries. I recently had a situation in my life where I had to no longer talk to some kids. And I did due diligence to, without knowing the sour, I did that. But it became an untenable situation for me, given the self-loathing that I began to feel because this person was important towards me. Could you comment on the importance
So
of boundaries?
before you love someone, you have to see, is this somebody who I need to interact with? If it's not and they're going to harm you, you don't need to love them. I do have a whole thing, actually it was a work incident, and it's called You Should Not Be a Jedi. And it talks about boundaries, about how we have to maintain boundaries. It has a wonderful quote in it that boundaries are the space at which I can love me and love you at the same time. Boundaries are super important. We have to protect ourselves, of course. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, what? Was it easy to let go?
Because it's responding to love, you can let go of somebody.
Yeah.
Let go of time, experience,
Right, if you love someone, sometimes you have to set them free. Yeah, I think that would be the response. It's really hard to do. And I've never thought of it
when someone tells you who they are, the first time, believe them.
Well, that's it. Oh, wait, there was a question in the back there?
It wasn't totally formatted yet.
It's okay, because everything I say is perfect.
When you first meet somebody, the kind of like the boundaries of like with the love, like leaning in, don't lean in, it's a choice. Like when you engage, like or engage, like how, like when you were walking there and you deciding to like engage. So like it's about being. So like how do you do that? Like what are some things that you come to in just being? We have love, but like leaning in or not, and all.
I think it's the same thing. You
Yeah.
have to make sure it's a safe situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take care of yourself first, of course. I wish I had that. Bruce is gonna answer that. Thank you.
At the beginning, I said that Brian was outside the box. And I was right, except that he's inside the box that I want to be in. Because he's full of love, he's full of thought, he's full of kindness. And hopefully we can all put ourselves inside that box with him. Brian, thank you for coming and sharing your wisdom. Thank you for sharing your love, and thank you for sharing yourself with all of us. And coffee and cookies and books outside. Please avail yourself. The cookies and the fruit are free. The books cost a few bucks.
And Richard Hoffman is gonna help with book sales. He's gonna be out there. if you need some assistance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, I will sign your own book.
I can sign it for you too.
You know,